I am so incredibly fed up with the academic world right now. Ugh. I don't even, have the words to say what it feels like to sit around working on a statement of purpose, and a personal statement, and another statement of purpose, and where do I get the money for applications, and I have homework due for my master's right now, and it just goes on. Not that I don't like doing the work, and not that I don't love being busy, but, seriously, this shit is too much. I just swore. At some point I'm gonna regret saying this stuff. Maybe. I've been sitting in front of my computer, and I've finally, at last, gotten sick of staring at my screen and wondering what I'm supposed to be writing, and my brain is completely fried, so I decided that it was time to make a video! Of course, makes total sense. This is in response to John Green's Crash Course World History on Literature. He decided that he was going to start with Romeo and Juliet, and so the inevitable has happened. This is episode 7, Love and Shakespeare, part 1, or why we call Romeo and Juliet the greatest love story of all time, but why it's actually not. Putting aside all of my feelings on the real story of Romeo and Juliet, the fact that Romeo was totally caught up with Rosalind for 5 minutes just before he met Juliet, and then he's in love with Juliet as soon as he meets her, or even talks to her. Putting aside how stupid they are that they get married after knowing each other for 5 minutes. I could so easily make a Sassy Gay Friend reference here. And come on, he's a total stalker. He goes to their window in the middle of the night. Putting aside that the priest could have just saved all this if he had just told everybody that they were married and everything would have been solved. Seriously, it's not like you can't fall in love at 13, but that stuff is fickle. It's they don't even know each other. At all. Putting all that aside, I'm not sure that Shakespeare was actually looking to write a whole love story. I think that he was just using Romeo and Juliet as a vehicle for the feelings. 2 feelings in particular. There are 2 scenes in here that people point out a lot. The first one is when they meet on the balcony, and the second one is when they're saying goodbye to each other after their first night together. It's really important that Shakespeare never actually writes any of their time together, them actually spending time together. We don't get a sex scene from them. We don't get an actual real declaration scene. We don't get to see their marriage scene even, but Shakespeare likes to write all of their comings and goings. So he has the first coming where Romeo comes to the window and they flirt with each other, and then that going as well, and then when they're in bed together and the going there. They always seem to be in transit, and that's really important because the thing about this young, very intense love is that it always feels better when you're flirting with danger, and it's important. It always feels better when there's something wrong with it and your parents don't want it to happen and it's incredibly sudden and it feels like it's striking you like lightning because that's what love's supposed to do, or at 13 that's what you think it's supposed to do. Shakespeare writes it exactly like that. It's lightning. So there's all these flowery cliche phrases, especially on Romeo's part. He likes to use really ridiculously cliche phrases, I'm sure you all know. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the sun and... No, it is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief. That's Romeo comparing Juliet to Rosalind, the chick that he's just dropped 5 minutes later. And then, of course, they're letting go of each other. And it's hard because it's that first love thing where they can't bear to be apart from each other and they just want to hang on each other. It's like those couples that you see that make out in public. It's like really intense for them. They can't bear to be parted from their beloved for more than 5 seconds. They're like literally connected at the lips. So when one of them has to go away, of course they're gonna say, "'Tis 20 years till then, I have forgot why I did call thee back. Let me stand here till thou remember it. I shall forget to have thee stand there still, remembering how I love thy company. And I'll still stay to have thee still forget, forgetting any other home but this." It's not that it's not realistic, because it is. That's how we all are in new love, that incredibly impetuous, instinctive, knee-jerk reaction where we're just like, we gush. Of course. But not all of us dive into a marriage after knowing each other for 48 hours. But I don't think that Shakespeare's really thinking about that. I think that Shakespeare is trying to convey that first love feeling. He's trying to convey that feeling of being near each other and how your skin just hums and what it's like to let someone go. So of course in Act 3, Scene 5, when they're letting each other go after their wedding night, Romeo calls her his soul. "How is't my soul? Let's talk, it is not day." And when they let each other apart, of course, even though it is foreshadowing for what's to come, there are all these vivid, eloquent images of death and how time moves so slowly when you're apart. "Art thou gone so, love, lord, I, husband, friend? I must hear from thee every day in the hour, for in a minute there are many days, and oh, by this count I shall be much in years, ere I again behold my Romeo. Oh, thinkest thou we shall ever meet again? I doubt it not, and all these woes shall serve for such sweet discourses in our time to come. O God, I have an ill-divining soul, methinks I see thee now, thou art below as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. Either my eyesight fails, or thou look'st pale. And trust me, love, in my eye so do you. Dry sorrow drinks our blood. Adieu, adieu." First of all, the French usage of adieu. Second of all, dry sorrow drinks our blood. They're supposed to be together again in like 3 days, and they're getting all weepy and crazy about it. Come on. Come on. They've known each other for like a week. The important thing, that's how they feel. So I'm not going to say that this is a great love story, and the reason that this is part 1 of the best love stories is because next week I'm going to cover another play that I think is absolutely the best love story of all time. You guys can all guess and figure out which one you think it is. It's definitely Shakespeare. In this, I think that it's about young love being realized, and that Shakespeare is giving us that young love in its most potent form so that we are carried away with it, along with Romeo and Juliet. It's destructive love. It's incredibly destructive in that they're so young that they don't care about the consequences on anybody else, and they are so apart from everyone, and they are so wrapped up in themselves that they don't realize that it could cause their deaths or other people's deaths. It does cause other people's deaths. It's a quintessential teenage love. Not to say that all teenage love is going to cause deaths, of course, but it only thinks of itself. And mature love is hopefully a lot different. Which is why I come to the conclusion that though we look at Romeo and Juliet as the love story, a lot of people look at Romeo and Juliet as the love story, it's actually not. It's an example of young, intense, passionate lust, as well as infatuation, but it doesn't necessarily go all the way to love. It shows us what those first throes are, but it doesn't really make the leap. That's not to say that Shakespeare is not able to make the leap, and if you'll come back for me next week, I'll go into the play that I think actually shows his characters in love.